For most of the 1940s and 50s, if something monumental was being built in America, the steel holding it up came from one place: the Golden Gate Bridge, the George Washington Bridge, Hoover Dam, Rockefeller Center, Madison Square Garden. The warships that won 2 oceans in the same war, all of it, held together by steel rolled, poured and shaped in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, by workers who punched in through the same gates their fathers walked through before them. At its peak, Bethlehem Steel was the second largest steelmaker on Earth. It employed over 300,000 people. Its plant in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, stretched 4.5 miles along the Lehigh River and covered 1,600 acres of ground. The company's word was law in American construction. Its executives were some of the wealthiest men in the country. Its order books, for 3 decades, were essentially bottomless. Fast forward to 2001, and it is over. The blast furnaces are cold. The plant is silent. The company files for bankruptcy with $4.2 billion in assets and $4.5 billion in debt. 95,000 pensioners are left holding a retirement fund that is less than half funded. 7,000 of them will have their benefits cut. The health insurance they were promised is gone entirely, not reduced, gone. Now, there is a simple story you can tell about what happened. Competition from Japan and Germany, cheap imports, global markets, all of that is true, but the truth is more damning and more specific. Because Bethlehem Steel did not just lose to a changing world, it was taken apart from the inside by the people running it over decades in full view of everyone who cared to look. What follows is the story of how the company that literally built America found a way to destroy itself, and who carried the cost when it did. To understand what was lost, you need to understand what this place actually was. The Bethlehem plant was not just a factory, it was a city inside a city. 20% of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania's total land area. 13,000 workers in 1939, 31,000 by 1944, more than doubled in 5 years. Men who started as laborers and stayed 40 years. Sons who followed fathers onto the same floor, through the same gate, into the same deafening furnace-lit world. The heat is the first thing. The open hearths run at temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The sound is something between thunder and a sustained roar. Ladles of molten steel the size of small houses being tipped and poured. The hiss and crash of cooling water, the percussion of rolling mills flattening ingots into I-beams wide enough to span a river. The smell is sulfur and hot iron. And over all of it, the particular sense that what is happening here matters. Because it does. In the summer of 1942, Eugene Grace, the chairman of Bethlehem Steel, made a personal promise to President Franklin Roosevelt. He told FDR that Bethlehem would build 1 ship per day in 1943. He delivered. Bethlehem's 15 shipyards built 380 vessels that year, 15 more than promised, more than 1 per day. At peak production, a destroyer escort could be assembled in 23 days. 5 landing ship tanks in 50 hours. By the end of the war, Bethlehem had built 1,121 ships, roughly 1 in 6 of the entire 2-ocean United States Navy. These are not abstractions. These are men with lunchboxes and calloused hands and specific faces, working 12-hour shifts, building the infrastructure of a civilization. The men who forge the gun barrels, the armor plate, the airplane parts, know they are building a war machine capable of winning the biggest conflict in human history. But here is something I find genuinely shocking the deeper I dig into this story. While those men on the shop floor take real pride in what they are making, the executives above them, the men actually running this company, are quietly building something else entirely. Not a better steel mill, a better lifestyle for themselves. And the gap between what they are paying themselves and what those men on the floor are earning is about to become one of the most outrageous stories in American corporate history. If you are finding this story as compelling as I am, hit subscribe. There is a lot more American industrial history on this channel that I think you will want to see. Eugene Gifford Grace is the man at the center of this. Born in 1876, son of a sea captain, he started at Bethlehem Steel at age 23 as an electric crane operator, earning $1.80 a day. He became president at 39 and ran the company for 41 years until 1957. 41 years of absolute control. His management style was total. His word was law on everything, from the specifications for a new blast furnace to the placement of a sand trap on the 10th hole at Silicon Valley Country Club, the private club Bethlehem Steel, built and owned for its executives. 2 police officers stationed themselves each morning at the entrance to corporate headquarters to watch for Grace's approaching car. When spotted, a signal went through the building. All elevators descended to the lobby and were held in place, empty, so that Grace could ride alone to his floor in what one account described as splendid isolation. His home, at 1317, Prospect Avenue in Bethlehem, had 23 bedrooms, 15 bathrooms, a ballroom, a bomb shelter, an indoor golf driving range, 3 greenhouses, and 24-hour security. When Grace drove to the country club for his afternoon round of golf, the city's traffic lights were synchronized green along his route. None of this would be remarkable if Grace had kept his compensation private. The Bethlehem bonus system, inherited from Charles Schwab, who built the company from a foreclosed shell in 1904, worked on the principle that executives who produced more should earn more with no ceiling. The bonuses were kept entirely secret from shareholders for decades. Then, in 1929, in a court proceeding over an attempted corporate merger, Grace was placed under oath. The court asked him what he had earned that year. His answer, $1,623,753. The equivalent of roughly $29 million today. His base salary was $12,000. The rest was bonus. A shareholder lawsuit followed. $36 million in total executive bonuses paid since 1911 were challenged in court. The case settled without requiring the money to be returned. Future bonuses would simply have to be disclosed in annual reports. Problem solved as far as Bethlehem's board was concerned. The board, by the way, was made up entirely of company insiders. Every director was a company officer. Their daily routine was described by John Strohmeyer, the Pulitzer Prize-winning editor of the Bethlehem Globe-Times, who covered the company for nearly 3 decades, as follows. Lunch together in the corporate dining room at noon, golf together in the afternoon, socializing together in the evening. Strohmeyer's conclusion was direct. These men were so removed from the real world that they rarely encountered a fresh or opposite point of view. By 1958, the isolation had produced a result so staggering, it barely seems real. That year, Bethlehem Steel had 6 or 7 of the 10 highest-paid executives in the entire United States of America. 6 or 7. At a steel company in Pennsylvania, the highest paid was Chairman Arthur Homer at $511,000, in a year when steelworkers on the floor were earning $1.96 an hour. Homer, that same year, asked those workers to accept a 1-year pay freeze. The company had just reported a record profit of $191 million. And that is not even the moment the company started dying. That happened earlier, quietly, in the decisions nobody talked about. The year is 1952. Austrian steelmakers commercialize a process called the basic oxygen furnace. It converts a charge of molten iron into finished steel in under 40 minutes. The old open hearth process Bethlehem depended on took 8 to 12 hours per heat. The oxygen furnace was faster, cheaper, and required roughly half the labor. Japan adopted it aggressively through the late 1950s. By 1970, 80% of Japanese steel production came from basic oxygen furnaces. Bethlehem Steel's adoption date, 1964. 12 years after the technology was commercially proven. 12 years of watching Japan modernize while refusing to move because the sunk cost of existing furnaces was too large, and the men at the top were too comfortable to force the change. But that is only half of it. What most people do not know, and I certainly did not before digging into this, is that Bethlehem Steel actually invented a better process first, then handed it to the competition. The company built a working pilot plant for continuous casting, a technology that eliminates entire stages of steel making and dramatically cuts cost. The pilot plant worked. Then Bethlehem walked away from it because it was not producing at high enough volume for the executive team to care. As soon as those results became known in the industry, the Japanese picked up the concept, refined it, and made it the backbone of their entire system. A technology developed in Pennsylvania, paid for by Bethlehem, became the competitive weapon that helped destroy Bethlehem. The executives who made that decision were eating lobster in a mahogany-paneled dining room, collecting $500,000 bonuses. The men on those floors who would eventually pay for it had no idea any of this was happening. If you are getting as angry about this as I was reading it, drop a comment below. I genuinely want to know how many of you had family working in steel. By the early 1970s, the rot was becoming visible. Orders were softening, foreign competition had taken market share, and a new domestic threat was rising that the company's leadership refused to take seriously: the mini-mill, pioneered by a company called Nucor. Nucor had built its first electric arc furnace steel mill in South Carolina in 1968 with a $6 million loan. The economics were devastating. Integrated mills like Bethlehem faced capital costs of $1,000 to $1,100 per ton of annual capacity. Mini mills ran at $140 to $300. Nucor's cost per ton shipped, according to Goldman Sachs analysis, was $79. Bethlehem's was $513. Bethlehem's internal engineers watched Nucor grow and sent periodic reports upward. The response, documented by one of those engineers, was dismissal. If a competitor comes on stream with 60,000 tons a year, the executive said, "We do not need to worry about that. One plant here, one plant there." The problem was that it was never just one plant. By the late 1980s, mini-mills had taken over the entire bar and rod market. By the 90s, they were moving into flat-rolled sheet steel, the product Bethlehem depended on. The executives who dismissed them were long retired on generous pensions. The workers who got laid off were not. The Nucor comparison is almost unbearable in retrospect. Nucor's CEO, Ken Iverson, ran a Fortune 500 company with 22 people at corporate headquarters. 4 management layers between the floor and the chairman. No company cars, no reserved parking, no executive dining rooms. In downturns, executive pay was cut 60 to 70% before workers took any reduction. There were no layoffs, ever. Iverson's philosophy was simple: management exists to serve production. The precise opposite of everything Grace had built and every successor had preserved. When Iverson told a gathering of steel executives in 1977 that the real problem facing the American steel industry was not imports but management, the room went silent. He was right. They knew he was right. And nothing changed. While all of this was unfolding, Bethlehem Steel was doing something that tells you everything you need to know about where the company's priorities actually sat. In 1972, the company completed a new corporate headquarters in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania at a cost of $35 million. 21 stories. Named Martin Tower, after the chairman who commissioned it, deliberately designed in the shape of a plus sign. Not because that was the most efficient use of space, but because a conventional square building would not have maximized the number of corner offices. The architects built in the cruciform shape specifically so more executives could have the premium window suite. The interior featured walnut-paneled offices decorated by New York designers, brass doorknobs engraved with the company's I-beam logo, hand-woven carpets, marble bathrooms, and a 4-star chef who prepared lobster and filet mignon served on silver platters. The building opened in 1972. The next year, Bethlehem set its all-time production record of 23.7 million tons. The year after that, its largest ever profit. Within 4 years of those records, the company posted its first loss in over 4 decades. The $35 million monument to corner offices had opened at the exact moment the ground underneath it was giving way. Enter the man who would finish what the market started. Donald Troutline spent 25 years as a partner at Price Waterhouse, handling the Bethlehem Steel account. He attended executive meetings, sitting quietly in the back, speaking when spoken to. He knew the numbers cold. He had zero experience making steel. In April of 1980, he became chairman and chief executive, the first outsider ever to hold that position, installed by a board that had run out of other ideas. Troutline cut the limousine fleet. He cut executive security details. He cut salaries. He brought in the Price Waterhouse mindset. If it does not produce profit, eliminate it. Between 1980 and 1986, he cut between 35,000 and 50,000 jobs. He closed the Lackawanna facility, the Johnstown operations, the West Coast plants, and sold 11 company divisions. In 1982, the company posted a loss of $1.5 billion. From 1982 to 1985, cumulative losses reached $1.9 billion. In 1983, for the first time in the company's history, more people were collecting Bethlehem Steel pensions than drawing Bethlehem Steel paychecks. Troutline was not the original architect of this disaster. He was its undertaker. The culture of entitlement Grace built over 41 years, the technological decisions delayed or abandoned, the competitors dismissed until it was too late. All of that created the hole Troutline was handed. He tried to fill it by cutting everything that moved. It was not enough. It was never going to be enough. The final chapter came slowly, then all at once. By the 1990s, the Bethlehem plant had been winding down for years. On November 18, 1995, the last pour from Blast Furnace C ended more than 130 years of continuous steelmaking in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. The furnace went cold. The workers standing there that night had no ceremony prepared. Nobody knew exactly what to say. What do you say when something that large goes quiet? Bethlehem Steel limped forward for another 6 years, attempting mergers, restructurings, and last-ditch strategies. On October 15, 2001, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Assets of $4.2 billion, debt of $4.5 billion, stock trading at $1.20 per share, down from a peak of over $30. The pension plan was turned over to the Federal Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, the largest single pension seizure in the agency's history. 95,000 people covered, only 45% funded. $3.5 billion in assets against $7.8 billion in liabilities, a shortfall of $4.3 billion. Approximately 7,000 retirees saw their monthly benefits cut. Health insurance, promised to tens of thousands of retirees, was eliminated entirely. Not reduced, eliminated. Dave Hayes, who had worked 31 years, saw his monthly pension drop from $1,700 to around $1,200. He was 51 years old. The CEO brought in 3 weeks before the filing said it plainly. We do not have the money to make good on all the promises made by this corporation over the last 50 years. The company dissolved in 2003. And then, in 2019, Martin Tower was imploded. Controlled Demolition, Incorporated, brought it down on May 19th in roughly 14 seconds. Thousands of people gathered before dawn to watch. Some cheered, some cried. The mayor of Bethlehem said it had been a symbol of corporate greed in the eyes of many people. A retired draftsman said it stood for out-of-touch executives who helped drive the company into the ground. And from somewhere in the crowd, a woman named Fran Mayatico said the thing that the people making those decisions had never managed to say in the previous 6 decades. This is where the money went that the workers never got. The blast furnaces still stand. Bethlehem, Pennsylvania turned them into a concert venue, an arts campus, a museum. Steel stacks, they call it, after the 5 furnace stacks that loom over the landscape like something from another civilization. 1 million visitors a year come to see what was once here. A casino operates on part of the site. For several years, the most profitable single gambling property in the entire Las Vegas Sands global portfolio. A steel mill turned into a casino. If this story needed a final symbol, that might be it. But standing beneath those stacks at night, when the lights are on them and they almost seem to breathe, it is hard not to think about what was actually here. Starting with 13,000 men in 1939, building to 31,000 by 1944. Families built on the understanding that if you showed up and worked hard and gave this place what it needed, it would take care of you in return. The engineering knowledge accumulated over generations. The supplier networks, the particular skill that takes decades to build and cannot be written down. All of it gone when the furnaces went cold. The question that the people making those decisions never properly answered is how a company whose steel still holds up bridges and skylines across this country ended up leaving its retirees with pension checks that did not cover their bills. Who made those decisions? What it cost? And whether anyone who made them ever paid a price. What finally closed in 2003 was not just a company, it was an agreement. The unspoken deal at the center of American industrial life, that the people who build things, who show up every day, who make the actual product, that they share in what they produce. Bethlehem Steel broke that deal one quiet decision at a time, over decades. And the people who suffered for it were not the people who made that choice. Here is what stays with me. In the same years that Bethlehem's executives were ranking among the 10 highest compensated people in America, the technology that would eventually help destroy the company was being commercially proven overseas. In the same year the $35 million headquarters opened, a competitor in South Carolina was making steel for a fraction of the cost. The warnings were there. The engineers saw them. The information went up the chain. And at every step, the people with the power to act chose not to. The workers who paid the price for those choices are still paying it. That is not history from a safe distance. That is a pattern that shows up again and again in different industries, different decades, different countries, whenever the people running something decide that what they are owed matters more than what they owe. The bills are still being paid by the wrong people. And if you want to see where that pattern leads in another place entirely, there is a video right here about exactly that. If you found this story worth your time, hit subscribe. There is a great deal more where this came from. Stories of what was built, what was lost, and who paid the price, every single time.